Hi and welcome, dear students. Today we are going to begin with The Making of a Scientist by Robert W. Patterson. It is from your book Footprints Without Feet. This is an autobiographical reference, an excerpt which we are going to read, and we will be using a graphic organizer in order to plot the time of the year or the time of in life and the discovery or the efforts and the experiments conducted by the scientist. So in order to understand it better, how to organize our piece of information, let us first go through the summary, and after that we will go through the text line by line in order to have a better understanding. So let us go and have a bird's eye view first. Alright, let's begin with a summary. This is about a scientist who wanted to experiment and develop in the field of science. He started at a very early age, and his life from middle school right up till college, university, and his discoveries has been mentioned in this reference. You can see one butterfly mentioned over there. He wanted to experiment and find out more about this butterfly and why it gets the spots, and then he discovered that there is an element of DNA present in those spots. So let us read through and find out more about the name of this butterfly and about the spots and what did the scientist discover and who was that scientist. The Making of a Scientist, the summary. This autobiographical reference, The Making of a Scientist, is a story about the famous scientist Richard Ebright. Richard was, as Richie, as his mother used to call him, was a very curious child right from his childhood. He had started collecting butterflies in his childhood, and when he was 2 years old, he had already collected all the 25 species found near his hometown. He thought it would be an end to butterfly collection until one day his mother bought him a book named The Travel of Monarch X. This was a turning point in his life, and he got much more interested in dealing with science. He started with tagging butterflies with a task given at the end of the book that his mother bought for him. And then when he first entered the country science fair with a slide of a frog tissue, he lost. The reason why he lost was he wanted to just show the tissue of a frog, the frog cells or the tissue on a slide to the visitors, and that was a very competitive science fair where people had brought their working experiments of science. So it was nothing of a display that was expected of him. It was more that was expected at that particular science fair. So he lost. Everybody won something, but his project did not win any prize. He was sad, but also understood that to win, he needed real experiments, not just make neat, cleaned models. Then he wrote down to Dr. Urquhart at the University of Toronto, asking him for ideas to make projects. He stayed busy during his high school working on the long list sent by him by Dr. Urquhart. Then for the next year's fair, he chose the project of looking at the viral disease that killed nearly all the monarch caterpillars every few years. Now comes the name of the butterfly, that is the monarch butterfly. You have seen the picture. That picture is that of a monarch butterfly. Now he was experimenting with the caterpillars of the monarch butterfly, and every year these caterpillars used to die of certain unknown viral disease. So he started experimenting on that first. He thought that the reason for this could be the beetle, that means another insect. So he started raising caterpillars in the presence of beetles but could not get any results. So make a note of this also. When we are using the graphic organizer, we will collect all this information and tabulate it. So when he showed his trial experiment at the country science fair, his project won a prize. Then for the next year, he made an experiment to show that the viceroy butterfly and the type of butterfly and the species of butterfly copied monarchs. That means copied another butterfly, the monarch butterfly that we had seen. This project revolves around monarch butterfly. This project also made him win prizes. Then he started his research as to the purpose of the 12 golden spots on the back of the monarch pupa. As you know that egg, larva, pupa, adult, that is the life cycle of a butterfly. He was experimenting the various stages. He looked at the pupa and there were 12 golden spots, and he was very curious to know more about those spots. Everybody believed that it was just a design, but Dr. Urquhart thought otherwise. Then Ebright and another brilliant science student got together and made a device that could show that the gold spots were responsible for releasing a hormone that was necessary for its growth. So we are talking about the pupa that was growing because of the hormone present on those golden spots. With the help of the sophisticated instruments at one of the labs, he got a chance to work and found the chemical structure of the hormone in the gold spots. So this was another discovery that he had made. Then one day, while looking at the photo of the chemical structure, he solved one of the biggest puzzles of life. He came to know how a cell blueprint its DNA. So this was another discovery that Ebright had made. It was a big breakthrough and was published in a magazine. He also had many other interests and also admired his social studies teacher, as he was the one who used to give him new ideas. He was good at debating, public speaking, and a great canoeist. Canoeist is a person who rides a kind of boat. It's a very flat kind of boat in which a person can lie down deep inside and only up top of the body is seen, and the oars are present. The person rushes with the force of the water, and there's quite a lot of skill. So that is how the skill of the canoeist has been mentioned over here. He never used to win for the sake of winning or for prizes, but because he wanted to be the best at whatever he used to do. So now he was experimenting and researching because he wanted to be the best in whatever he did. It was not for the sake of prize that he was experimenting on these butterflies. It was shown in his chapter that with the right amount of curiosity, a bright mind, and the will to win for the right reasons are the qualities needed of a scientist. Kindly make a note of the qualities mentioned of a great scientist, that makes a great scientist. His mother also played a big role in making him what he was, as it was she who supported him throughout his journey and brought him the book, The Travel of Monarch X, which aroused his curiosity in the field of science. Now we know quite a lot about monarch butterfly. Now let us go back and see, let us from the beginning, the text and the explanation. Fine. Let us proceed with the writer, that is Robert W. Patterson. From the planner, you must have seen that it is in our weekly plan, and we need to identify the plot, character. Now it is not a story, so you will not have a plot. Character sketch, you can definitely have the character of the scientist. and the qualities and the perspective of the character. He was quite positive character, personal perspective. And what do you think about this particular scientist? Now, first of all, Robert W. Patterson, who has written this, and he was an American. He became a freelance author. This piece of information is taken from Wikipedia. You can read more about him. Let us proceed with a little more information about the writer. He received the Cyril Scholar Award. Now this story is about Richard H. Ebright, who grew up in his town of Reading in Pennsylvania in USA. As he did not have much to do there, collecting things was his hobby. He used to collect butterflies as a child in kindergarten. Let's read how his curious child who collected butterflies went on to become the great scientist of his world. Now, as we are reading, I want you to prepare a graphic organizer and note down the piece in the information as we come across the time of his life. It could be his age, it could be his grade or class in which he was studying, or the school, college or university. That will be noted down over here. And his discoveries, effort, attempt or experiments will be noted in this particular column. So by the end you will definitely have all the pieces of information well tabulated, so that you can write a process paragraph, or you can also write the order in which he progressed and became a scientist. So please have this in place as we begin the lesson. The making of a scientist. The text that is in blue is from the prescribed text, and the one that is in green is restated or explanation. At the age of 22, a former Scout of the Year exited the scientific world with a new theory on how cells work. Richard H. Ebright and his college roommate explained the theory in an article in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science. So we come to know about this scientist that his discovery was published. It was the first time his important scientific journal had ever published the work of college students. In sports, that would be like making the big leagues at the age of 15 and hitting a home run your first time at bat. For Richard Ebright, it was the first in a long string of achievements in science and other fields, and it all started with butterflies. So we have already read through the summary that right from his childhood, from his kindergarten, he had great obsessions and likeness for butterflies. And his work was, when he grew up, his work was published, and it was rather odd that a college student's work was published in a science journal or a magazine. An only child, Ebright grew up north of Reading, Pennsylvania. Reading is a place. There wasn't much I could do there, he said. I certainly couldn't play football or baseball with the team of the making of a scientist one. But there was one thing I could do, collect things. So he did, and did he ever. Beginning in kindergarten, Ebright collected butterflies with the same determination that he marked all his activities. He also collected rocks, fossils, coins. As most of the children do, they collect and keep it in their pockets. He became an eager astronomer too, sometimes stargazing all night. The meaning of difficult words used in this explanation text has been listed for you. Former means particularly formally known. Scout is one of those, the way we have prefects. Scout is one of the systems in America. Proceedings are the meetings or the conferences. Journal is a formal collection of research papers where the amateur scientists or or upcoming scientists they bring out their research papers. Making the big league, that means having a tough competition and winning. And then fossils are plants and animals which get immersed in stones and get solidified. Now, Richard H. Ebright, along with his roommate, this is an explanation that is given of the text that we have just read, that his work was published and he was quite delighted. It is very rare that a college student's work was published. Right from childhood, he was very keen in collecting butterflies, and this obsession extended to collecting pebbles, stones, and other things. And he was quite delighted that he had made an effort. And he also ventured into stargazing and studying astronomy. Proceeding with the text, from the first he had a driving curiosity along with a bright mind. He also had a mother who encouraged his interest in learning. She took him on trips, bought him telescopes, microscopes, cameras, mounting materials and other equipment, and helped him in many other ways. So his mother was the greatest support that he received right from childhood, and the kind of guidance that she had given that channelized him to develop and become a scientist. I was his only companion until he started school, his mother said. After that, I would bring home friends for him, but at night we just did things together. Richie was my whole life after his father died when Richie was in 3rd grade. So you can make a note of it in your graphic organizer, that from the age of 3 or from the age of kindergarten you can record that he used to collect butterflies. Then at the age of 3 we come to know about his father's death. She and her son spent almost every evening at the dining room table. If he didn't have things to do, I found work for him, not physical work but learning things, his mother said. He liked it, he wanted to learn. And learn he did. He earned top grades in school. On everyday things, he was just like every other kid, his mother said. By the time he was in the 2nd grade, Ebright had collected all 25 species of butterflies found around his hometown. You can record this piece of information. That probably would have been the end of my butterfly collecting, he said. But then my mother got me a children's book called The Travel of Monarch X. That book, which told how monarch butterflies migrate to Central America, opened the world of science to the eager young collector. Proceeding further, the meaning has been given. As I read, the meaning was explained to you. So we come to know now that his father died when he was very young. He used to collect butterflies, and he was fascinated to collect butterflies and all the species around his hometown. And then the book that his mother gave him took the better of him, and that is how he turned his direction towards learning more about the monarch butterfly. At the end of the book, readers were invited to help study butterfly migrations. They were asked to tag butterflies for research by Dr. Frederick Urquhart of the University of Toronto, Canada. Ebright's mother wrote to Dr. Urquhart, and soon Ebright was attaching light adhesive tags to the wings of the monarchs. Anyone who found a tagged butterfly was asked to send the tag to Dr. Urquhart. The butterfly collecting season around reading lasts 6 weeks in late summer. If you are going to chase them one by one, you won't catch very many. So the next step for Ebright was to raise a flock of butterflies. He would catch a female monarch, take her eggs and raise them in the basement through their life cycle, from egg to caterpillar to pupa to adult butterfly. Then he would tag the butterfly wings and let them go. For several years his basement was home to thousands of monarchs in different stages of development. So this was one way of the experiment, that he would tag the butterfly, that he has seen this butterfly and that wherever that butterfly goes, that was to be tracked by the people who were interested in learning more about butterflies, and they all used to report to doctor. Eventually I began to lose interest in tagging butterflies. It's tedious and there's not much feedback. That means he never used to receive any feedback, and people around were also not very keen in sending out feedback to those who were studying about butterflies. Ebright said that in all at the time I did it. He laughed. Only 2 butterflies I had tagged were recaptured, and they were not more than 75 miles from where I lived. So we come to know that he had been tagging butterflies, and that is how from the behind the book he came to know about Dr. Orcott and his university. His mother got in touch with him and they started tagging butterflies, and that became a practice. But very soon he lost touch, that interest in it, because there was no feedback and he never understood much about it. He just remembered 2 butterflies which were tracked and brought back. They were just 75 miles away from his hometown. Reading the text further, then in the 7th grade, now make a note of it, when he was in grade 7, he got a hint of what real science is when he entered a country science fair and lost. It was really a sad feeling to hit there and not get anything while everybody else had won something. Ebright said his entry was slides of frog tissues which he showed under a microscope. He realized the winners had tried to do real experiments, not simply make a neat display. Now he entered a science fair where he just stood showing the tissue of a frog under a microscope, and then very soon everyone won in that science fair except he, and very soon he realized that he needed a working experiment, something that of a discovery, not that of a neat display. Already the competitive spirit that drives Richard Ebright was appearing. I knew that for the next year's fair I would have to do a real experiment, he said. The subject I knew most about was the insect work I had been doing in the past several years. So he had already chosen his field. So he wrote to Dr. Orcott for ideas and came back a stack of suggestions for experiments. Those kept Ebright busy all through his high school. Make a note of it, that next progress is that of the high school, and he kept experimenting his the list of experiments suggested by Dr. Orcott. For his 8th grade, now make a note of the 8th grade project, Ebright tried to find the cause of a viral disease that kills nearly all monarch caterpillars every few years. Ebright thought the disease might be carried by a beetle. So now make a note of it. The next experiment, he tried raising caterpillars in the presence of beetles. I didn't get very real results, he said, but I went ahead and showed that I had tried the experiment. This time I won. So make a note of this, winning as well. Kindly keep recording in your graphic organizer so that at the end of the reading you have all the information listed with the time of the year and the experiment event that is taking place. The next year, let us see which year. Right now he was talking about his 8th grade. Next year will be 9th grade. His science fair project was testing the theory of viceroy butterflies and the butterfly which copied monarchs. The theory was that viceroys look like monarchs because monarchs don't taste good to birds. Viceroys, on the other hand, do taste good to birds. So, the more they look like monarchs, the less likely they are to become a bird's dinner. So, that is how this is the kind of scientific, or would say, um, mutation, or maybe camouflage technique that was being adopted by another butterfly, trying to resemble and look like another butterfly so that they are protected by their enemies, those are the birds. Ebright's project was to see whether in fact birds would eat monarchs. He found a startling would not eat ordinary bird food. It would eat all the monarchs it could get. Ebright said later research by other people showed that viceroys probably do copy the monarch. This project was placed first in the zoology division and the third overall in the country science fair. Make a note of this discovery and this success as well. So we have understood about his experiment in grade 8 and his experiment in grade 9. He kept studying about the butterflies. He also experimented why the caterpillars died. He experimented with beetles. That experiment won the prize. The next year he experimented with monarchs and why the viceroy bird copied it. That was placed first in the zoology. Let us read further. In his second year in high school, Richard Ebright began the research that led to his discovery of an unknown insect hormone. Indirectly, it also led to his new theory of the life of cells. The question he tried to answer was simple: what is the purpose of the 12 tiny gold spots on a monarch pupa? So, egg, larva, pupa, that means the second last stage before it becoming an adult. There were few dots, as many as 12 golden dots, and there was a purpose underlying it. When he experimented, he found out that there was hormone present in it that was preventing the death of the pupa, or that was helping the growth of the pupa into an adult. Everyone assumed the spots were just ornamental. Ornamental means just for decoration or beauty. Ebright said the Dr. Urquhart didn't believe it. To find the answer, Ebright and another excellent science student first had to build a device that showed that the spots were producing a hormone necessary for the butterfly's full growth. This project won Ebright's first place in the country fair and entry into the International Science and Engineering Fair. There he won third place for zoology. Make a note of both the entries. He also got a chance to work during the summer at the entomology laboratory of the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. Now make a note of this: high school junior. As a high school junior, Richard Ebright continued his advancement experiments on the monarch pupa. That year, his project won first place at the International Science Fair and gave him another chance to work in the Army laboratory during the summer. Make a note of the next entry in his second year. He went a step further. He grew cells from a monarch's wing in a culture and showed that the cells would divide and develop into normal butterfly wing scales only if they were fed the hormone from the gold spots. That project won first prize for zoology at the International Fair. Make a note of this also. He spent the summer after graduation doing further work at the Army laboratory and at the laboratory of the US Department of Agriculture. The following summer, make this entry also please. After his freshman year at Harvard University, Ebright went back to the laboratory of the Department of Agriculture and did more work on the hormone from the gold spots. Using the laboratory's sophisticated instruments, he was able to identify the hormone's chemical structure. So now the discovery of DNA is taking place. A year and a half later, during his junior year, Ebright got the idea for his new theory about cell life. It came while he was looking at X-ray photos of the chemical structure of a hormone. When he saw those photos, Ebright didn't shout, Eureka, or even, I have got it, but he believed that along with his findings about insect hormones, the photos gave him the answer to one of the biology's puzzles, how the cell can read the blueprint of its DNA. So this discovery took place. DNA is the substance in the nucleus of a cell that controls heredity. It determines the form and function of the cell. Thus, DNA is the blueprint for life. So, his college life, he made several discoveries, and the most important discovery was that of DNA. And he won prizes for his discoveries at every stage. That motivated him to keep his research through, and finally he hit the jackpot, that is discovering the DNA, that is the blueprint of life in a cell. Ebright and his college mate James R. Wong worked all that night drawing pictures and constructing plastic models of molecules to show how it could happen. Together they later wrote the paper that explained the theory. Surprising no one who knew him, Richard Ebright graduated from Harvard with highest honors, second in his class of 1510. Ebright went on to become a graduate student researcher at Harvard Medical School. Please make a note of this in your graphic organizer. There he began doing experiments to test his theory. If the theory proves correct, it will be a big step towards understanding the processes of life. It might also lead to new ideas for preventing some types of cancer and other diseases. All of this is possible because of Ebright's scientific curiosity. His high school research into the purpose of the spots of a monarch pupa eventually led him to the theory about cell life. Richard Ebright has been interested in science since he first began collecting butterflies, but not so deeply that he hasn't time for other interests. Ebright also became a champion debater and public speaker and a good canoeist, an all-round outdoors person. He is also an expert photographer, particularly of nature and scientific exhibits. In high school, Richard Ebright was a straight A student because learning was easy. He turned a lot of his energy towards the debating model United Nations clubs. He also found someone to admire, Richard Viheirer, his social studies teacher and advisor to both clubs. Mr. Viheirer was the perfect person for me then. He opened my mind to new ideas, Ebright said. Richard would always give that extra effort. Mr. Viheirer said, what pleased me was, here was the person who put in 3 or 4 hours at night during debate research besides doing all his research with butterflies and his other interests. Richard was competitive. Mr. Viheirer continued, but not in a bad sense. He explained. Richard wasn't interested in winning for winning's sake or winning to get a prize. Rather, he was winning because he wanted to do the best job he could. For the right reasons, he wants to be the best. And that is one of the ingredients in the making of the scientist. Start with the first-rate mind, add curiosity, and mix in the will to win for the right reasons. He wanted to win, and that is the reason he kept on continuing. Ebright has 3 qualities. From the time of the book The Travel of Monarch X opened the world of science to him, Richard Ebright has never lost his scientific curiosity. With this, we have completed the lesson, and now let us proceed to the exercise. Students may pause and read the explanation. Canoeist, I have explained, it's a boat. He speaks about his teacher. And the summary, we have already done it in the very beginning in order to develop a better understanding. Now let us proceed to the question answers right away. We've gone through the question answers, we have gone through the summary. Now let us proceed to the question answers. I request the students to pause the video and read the question answers. How did the book become the turning point in Richard Ebright's life? The next question is, how did his mother help him? Pause the video and read the answer. What lesson does Ebright learn when he does not win anything at the science fair? Pause the video, read the answer. What experiments and projects does he then undertakes? What are the qualities that go into the making of a scientist? Pause the video and read the answer. With this, we have come to the end of this exercise. If you are new on the channel, kindly subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you receive the notification when I upload the next video in this series. And if you like the video, please hit like so that it gets added up in your playlist of liked videos. You can refer to your notes as and when you like. Kindly share it with your family and friends. Thank you very much for your precious time.